morning and welcome to another exciting episode of the Wealth Help Desk. It's great to see you, Hunter.
Great to be
How
here.
are you? It's great to be live as well, right?
Always.
We love a live show. And we've got an exciting episode packed with all kinds of finance tips and tricks that you need to be able to be successful in your financial future. So we're going to start jumping right into it, buddy.
Yeah, I think we're hopping in today in some random little situations people are in and how to maybe make it a little bit better.
So we picked 4 different scenarios, and we're trying to paint the picture of a lot of different folks walking different areas of life. Yeah. Kids, without kids, single, one with a job, roommate, living alone, low income, high income. So we kind of painted all these pictures, but we're going to start with Sarah. So we've got Sarah. She's 28 years old. She's living the dream. She's making $58,000 a year, which is, by the way, a little bit above the median salary for somebody her age, right? She's also, go ahead and throw that slide up there, Tanner, as well, so that we can see it. But ultimately, she's got that salary, $58,000 a year. She's got about $1,200 in savings. She's got a little bit higher debt, right? Yeah. There's credit card debt on here with the 22% interest rate, and that's just tough. It is one of those things.
Those are hard to get out of.
Yeah, we're going to have to battle through. Market coordinator, lives in an apartment, maybe in a city somewhere. Not really an emergency fund. She's got some lifestyle creep. She dines out a lot. She's got unknown subscriptions, and she's self-care shopping. And if you don't know what that is, that means she likes to go out and treat herself when she's feeling sorry about whatever's going on in life.
Or when you're feeling good.
Well, ultimately, she finds a lot of her feeling good on shopping. And there's some challenges that exist here, Hunter. So let's unpack this on where you would start kind of the conversation.
I mean, I think a lot of people are in that same exact situation. It's really easy to go out there and, you already got some credit card debt and you're like, well, you know what? That's a problem for tomorrow. I'm still going to go eat out today. I'm going to get that Chick-fil-A. I'm going to go over to South Park and buy the new iPhone, whatever it is. A lot of people do that. But I think, the first place to tackle, in my opinion, would be the credit card and those personal loans. 22% is crazy.
Yeah.
And you cannot get out of that with the minimum payment. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and this is a little bit above average. I mean, I would say $18,000 on 22% is getting to the point where if you threw 20% of your salary at that, you're still going to end up having to climb a mountain, right?
Oh, yeah, and a very big one at that.
Yeah.
And it's the 22% is the biggest portion there. So to start, my thing would be probably go look at a consolidation loan. Get something like under 10%.
Sure.
Find something you can, 60 months somewhere in there, get a manageable payment.
Sure.
And plan to just really aggressively take that thing out.
And the great news actually about Sarah is she's not so far behind that she can't get out of this scenario.
No, not
right?
at all.
And the challenges that exist, and I like to go back to the basics. I like to go back to, and I know I have always called it a budget. We can call it a spending plan. That's what we call it at Alloy Wealth, is a spending plan. So you want to create a spending plan because you are going to spend money, but you have to be intentional about where each of those dollars go, right? Because it's not just going to fall in place by accident, especially when you have some of these different things that you're battling with, like lifestyle creep, like the shopping.
Yeah.
And not that I'm saying you should never do those things, but you need to be strict about saying, hey, I'm only going to spend $100 a month on this thing. I'm only going to let lifestyle creep, I'm not going to participate in big ways because ultimately I do have this debt issue. And ultimately I have a small savings account, right?
Well, and two, you could go out and get that loan. You can go, consolidate all that debt and put it in one thing. But if you just go right back out and max those credit cards out again, what was it worth?
Yeah.
You've just dug yourself into a deeper hole.
Exactly.
So you really have to combat, first the dining problem, the subscription problem, and the self-care spending problem before you really tackle that large amount of credit cards.
Yeah, and I like the idea of sitting down. It can be with you. You can do it with a camera. You can do it, just internally or whatever. Just saying, hey, here's what my budget is. I'm not just looking at it. I'm writing it down, and I'm talking to myself out loud about saying, hey, I have $300 a month for eating out. And that's all I'm going to get this month, right? But ultimately, you have to start building these small muscles to
Yeah,
kind of
you have
claw
to.
your way out of these pieces. Because if you don't, and you let this go on like, the current spot you're in for another 7 years, it'll be much worse. And it'll be at a point where you might not be able to get out of it easily, right?
Well, and I think about it too, like, for this girl at 28 years old, she's single, she's living in a city. It wouldn't be hard to find someone to room with. There's so many Facebook groups and other ways to find a roommate, cut that mortgage in half, cut that rent in half, which is a huge, huge thing. I mean, you think about the average rent, like we talked about, in, this area, probably like $2-3 grand a month.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
being able to cut that in half, goes a long way to that, $4,200 a month that she's taking home.
Absolutely. And I know that's like an emotional decision where you don't know, nobody,
you don't know.
Like, you might want a roommate. Like, I would love, like, I don't want to live alone ever.
Yeah,
and so
same.
I might be like, yo, Hunter, let's go get a spot downtown and we'll hang out, and it'll be like boys' night every night. It'll be awesome, right? But not everybody's like that. There's a certain point where some people want their own space and they want to live alone. And so there's just certain times in life where if you get disciplined today, you can find a good spot and be able to save some money and do these things. But if you continue to try and live an undisciplined life with no plan, you're going to end up in a tough sput.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one. You want to paint the picture for us here, Hunter?
Yeah, we've got Mike and Jessica. They're mid-30s, 34 and 32. And they've got that dual income debt trap. So they're married with 2 young kids, age 3 and 6. Mike's a teacher. Jessica works part-time retail. Combined income of about $92,000. So that's a good income. It's a very stable income. They've got $45,000 left on their mortgage. They have a bit higher on the credit card. Well, not really, actually, when you consider it's auto loan as well. $28,000 between credit cards and auto loan debt.
Sure.
But they only have $2,000 in savings. So minimal retirement contributions.
Yeah, and they're going to, obviously with that mortgage, they're going to have a house. There's going to be some payments on that side.
Yep. So, you add in, daycare costs, grocery costs, keeping up with the kids' activities, using credit cards for vacations and holidays. You're kind of living paycheck to paycheck, despite that solid income.
Yeah, I think obviously I'm kind of like almost in this spot. I have a 1-year-old, and then another on the way. In November. And so we're like going through all these different things. And ultimately, one of the biggest challenges I had when Luke was first born was trying to figure out what life looked like. And I realized that a new routine needed to be built. Yeah. When it's just 2 parents and you're kind of living life with this dual income, there's a lot of money that can kind of go whatever direction. Sarah can kind of go do her thing and buy whatever she wants to buy whenever she wants to buy it. And that was not an issue. But when we got to a spot where we bought a house and had a kid, ultimately everything had to tighten up a little bit. And I stepped up and said, hey, I'll be responsible for these pieces of the puzzle, because it was something where I saw there was just things everywhere that we needed to kind of rein in to make sure they were good to go. And I think this is one of those things where you have such low energy because the kids kind of drain it all, that you don't really have time to spend it, but you have things you have to spend it on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the biggest one I would say on here is the daycare side, right?
And that's going to be a tough scary part.
It is.
Because that's thousands of dollars in a lot of cases. And, you add a second kid in there and it just gets more and more expensive. And, with being a teacher in retail, you almost wonder how much, money do you need to make at your job to realistically justify still working and not being stay at home, because the daycare cost, for a lot of people creeps up on that. Like, wow, we're close to what I'm actually making. Yeah. And I have a lot of friends who are in that situation right now of like, I'm spending 80% of my income on childcare. Yeah. Exactly. It's crazy. It's tough. And ultimately you'd want to get to a spot where you either can rely on your community, your family, anybody that can help take care of kids. Because ultimately, we know that daycare centers are full. Oh, yeah. Right? There's lots of kids in there, and you don't always get the same individual attention. There's all kinds of different things that come into that. And you have to make some big life choices about how you want to raise your children. Yeah. Right? The other thing I would say on this, it's actually your benefit, is that kids are pretty easy to entertain. You can take them to the park. You can take them a lot of places, and they have a great time, and they don't really need a lot of stuff. A $10 toy is endless hours of entertainment. Oh, yeah. And I think that's important and impactful, because you can occupy a lot of the time for the entertainment on the side of just spending quality time together and being out in the front yard. Like, I love, right now we're walking. Luke wants to walk everywhere, and so he always he grabs my hand.
Daddy said, and he wants, like, he's got one of my fingers and he's just dragging me along wherever he wants to go. And
so
he will
great,
do that he'll do that for 5,
So
6
great.
hours. Like, that's the whole thing, right? And so you have these entertainment things that are super cheap. You can just go do this stuff really, really easily. And so that's a great time to have it. But ultimately, this is one of those things where you want to boost your savings account too. You're going to have more emergencies.
The $2,000 in savings for me with 2 kids, that's scary.
Yeah, it is.
That is a very scary thing. I mean, I would be scared having $2,000 without any kids.
Sure.
But then you had kids in there, and that's what, one emergency room visit.
One emergency room visit, one refrigerator goes out, one washer and dryer. If you got the mortgage, So
it's just for me, again, I'm probably tackling the credit card stuff first. Building up that savings account and also then tackling the credit cards. The $45,000 in a mortgage, honestly, I feel like that's pretty good.
Sure.
For a 34 and 32-year-old to only have $45,000 left on it.
Totally.
That's, I don't know what they paid for their home, but I can only imagine, it was a decent chunk of money.
Yeah. And if you're going to have some equity in your home, that's ultimately something that I wouldn't try and pay off. It's not like we should attack that mortgage first. I think boosting the savings account is a really good plan. I think getting rid of as much debt as you possibly can is another great plan. And ultimately living a life that's like, have fun with the kids, do things that you guys enjoy together.
So tell me this, what about things like, HELOCs and things like that, where they could maybe pull some equity out of that home? Would that be a wise choice for them to maybe put some work to that credit card auto loan debt, maybe put a few grand back in the savings account?
I wouldn't recommend it unless you had to.
Really?
Right. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of trying to use debt to be able to cover debt. It's just one of those things where it's like you just need to attack one of the problems solo. So I wouldn't recommend something like that. It's not my preferred choice. It's not. Some people would be okay with that. I just don't like that plan.
No, and I personally, I'm not a huge fan either, but you see the ads for it everywhere you go now. Everybody, after COVID, everybody had so much equity in their homes that everybody seems to be pushing those now as a way to kind of get out of the hole, but it almost kind of digs a little bit deeper if you're not careful with it.
The other thing with this is like you can make big life choices that help you lower your payment. Maybe you go look for a smaller house.
You totally could. And roll that equity into a new place.
Exactly. Now you get rid of your mortgage, right? Maybe you have a smaller and more constrained environment that's tougher, but it gives you some leverage in some of these other areas where you're not having to pay as much on a mortgage.
$92,000 is a lot of money.
It is.
Like there's no kidding about that being a lot of money.
Yeah.
Especially in your early 30s.
Yeah, and this is also the point where you would like to see them start trying to put some money away into retirement, right? Where's the 10% going to? Maybe a 401k match, maybe some money in the Roth IRAs for sure. Anything in the market is great because you're going to get some back. And so that's really the other missing piece to this puzzle that I really need to focus on. And then grocery store visits, obviously this is on here too, but trying to be mom is normally the one doing grocery store shopping. That's how it works in our house. But ultimately trying to find the best bang for the buck for whatever we're eating for dinner. Healthy.
Thankfully, there's a lot of places to do that now.
Exactly.
We do our monthly Costco run, and that helps a ton.
Exactly. Let's talk about Jamal. Jamal is 41. He's stressful but stressed. Oh, sorry, successful but stressed. My bad. He's losing his mind.
Ball of stress.
He's got a nice salary, $105,000 a year. He's got a nice car payment with a nice car of $650 a month, $12,000 in emergency fund, and then a $45,000 student loan and about $9,000 of credit card debt. He's also built a retirement account of $68,000. His main problems are lifestyle inflation, child support strain, knows he should invest more, but feels paralyzed by debt. Net worth barely positive. Ooh, Jamal.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I think we see this a lot more nowadays.
The car payment, that's pretty much average now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They're in the 600s now. The $12,000 emergency fund's great.
Yep.
That's a great number to have in there.
Yep.
$45,000 in student loans, it's not great. At 41, but I don't think it's the worst thing. Your payment on that's probably $400 or $500 a month, given his income. They have those IDR plans that a lot of people are still on.
Yeah.
Which it's not great. I tackled mine pretty hard. I was making double payments for a very long time on them to get them gone, and now they are gone. And I'm very thankful for that. And I actually had close to the same amount of numbers, so it actually is doable to pay those student loans off and get those gone.
Totally.
$9,000 in credit card debt. Again, it's not the worst we've seen today.
Sure, that's right. Yeah, and that's, I mean, this is normal, right? The average American has credit card debt that they're dealing with and managing,
most people do.
right? Yeah, and that's one of those things, like, obviously, it's the worst kind of debt because it has the highest interest rate.
Yep.
It will absolutely murder you in the long run. I would say always try and eliminate it as quickly as possible. But my biggest fear with Jamal here, investment fears. Right? That's an interesting statement to make because we've seen this before. People show up paralyzed or what do I do? Where should I put my money and whatnot? And ultimately, I hate that my answer always comes back to this, but if you have the numbers on a piece of paper sitting in front of you and you know that 10% is going to go to savings, 10% is going to go to credit card debt, 70% is going to go to this, I'm going to live on this 70 or call it 60% and 10% is going to tithe, whatever.
Yeah.
But when you know that and those dollars automatically come out of your account, you don't see the paycheck show up. It's $4,500 a month. You don't see the 30% come out. It just automatically goes over there, right? And you know what you have left, and you said, hey, this is my 60% that I'm going to live on. Those are the moments when I look at somebody that has fear, it's like, hey, you'll live for the most part. If I hand you $2,000 and say this is all you've got for the month, you're going to make it work. Right.
Yeah, you'll figure it out.
And those are the things where it's like, you just need those things to be automatic and you got to force yourself into that lifestyle for what that looks like.
It's almost,
right?
You get kind of robotic with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of have to, unless you're just a gazillionaire, then it really doesn't matter. But for the most 99.9% of Americans and really the world, you have to find that lifestyle and kind of stick with it. And the problem is, people, they start at that $50,000 and then Sarah gets that raised to 80. Then she gets to 105 like Jamal. And the entire time, like, you're like, wow, I still feel the same way I did when I was making 58 grand. And it's because you keep increasing that lifestyle and you just keep leveling it up, which feels great while you're doing it.
Sure.
Until you get to the end of the month and you're like sitting there, looking at all the papers and you're sweating and you're stressed out because you don't know how to make things work anymore.
Yep. And it's just the little decisions. Like we have the one that always gets me this week, 2 days ago. I have 2 golden retrievers, Rosie and Arlo. They get flea and tick medicine. They get shots, whatever. But normally they go to the vet about once a year, and it costs about anywhere from $600 to $1,000, right? And that's one of those things that's like, the budget for this month is a little attacked, like we. I didn't realize they were going to the vet, and so I didn't put the numbers in there. And so but there's things like that are gonna come up in life, right? And you have to be aware of them. Say, hey, when I get the dog, I should think about the cost that comes into feeding the dogs and make sure they go to the vet. And you take your dog to the vet this morning, right? Where it's like there's those just pieces, they kind of pop up, and it's hard to account for them, but it's not impossible. You can see it,
you
know.
can.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's so many little things, and it's like I've come to just tell myself there's going to be something happening at all times. There will never be a calm moment.
Yeah.
The car needs, tires or needs an oil change or, brakes go out, all of these things they're going to happen.
Yeah.
And they're just going to happen perfectly at the right time when you're not expecting it. And that's just, if you live your life knowing that the unexpected is going to happen, but you are prepared for it, you're going to be fine.
Exactly. And I found that the apps helped me a lot.
The apps are amazing.
I mean, for subscriptions, for all that stuff, for the net worth tracking, to figure out what's in savings right now, what's in the market, what's doing well, what's not.
Credit Karma, like all the different things.
And
they're great.
Pick your poison, Nerd Wallet, Monarch, whatever it is. They're all great in different ways. Some are paid, some are free. I like Nerd Wallet because it's free. You can go get Monarch though, $50 a month, and it's going to do the same stuff, and it's going to give you some different stats. And so there's all these pieces of the puzzle, but these are great tools to help you manage the pieces in this puzzle, right? Because what happens is it's not an invisible thing anymore. You don't not see it. Yeah, now you're looking at it in the face, and you're like, oh, how do I tackle this problem in front of me? But investment fears is Jamal, everyone struggles with this. You got it. Put 10% in the market, call it a day, on to the next. All right, give us Alex.
Yeah, so we got Alex. He's 24. He's a recent grad with student debt overwhelm. So, give you his background here. He's single, entry-level software tester, has a couple roommates.
Good for him.
First full-time job right after college.
Sure.
So, he's making $52,000 a year. Has $38,000 left in student loans, which again, at 24, that's an average. That's not bad. They're at 6.5%, which is pretty on average for what we're seeing today.
Yeah.
800 in savings, so we want to definitely get that up. But again, he just graduated, So we'll give them a little leeway there. Small credit card balance from moving cost, no investments. So overall, it's not a horrible picture there.
Sure.
He is overwhelmed by conflicting advice, pay debt aggressively versus invest. Lifestyle includes frequent takeout, streaming services, nights out with friends, and he kind of feels behind his peers on social media.
Sure.
And I could
How do you
see
feel
that.
about that? How do you feel about social media comparing yourself to others? Just give me your thoughts on how to battle that.
There's no battling it. You're always going to see that one person on there who's 22 years old and they're driving the new Porsche and they got all the lifestyle in the world. You're going to see it.
Yeah.
Social media has convinced us, though, I feel like that's 99% of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. It's less than 1%.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it, but you can't compare yourself to others or you're just going to consistently be doing that and you're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
So I think take social media out of it entirely. But what do you think about the pay the debt aggressively or invest?
Oh man, I don't know.
That's a tough one.
So I'm different and I'm kind of more of a fire guy. I would rather you spend your 20s in absolute misery for a couple reasons. One, most of the times it's just you. Mm-hmm. And as a man, so I'm an Army guy. I've been in the military for 19 years. And I can live in some rough conditions. Yeah. I can live without food. I can sleep on a park bench. I can find a tent, now, obviously that's the extreme. I could basically live homeless and survive, right? But ultimately it's not that point. It never got to that point in my life, but I know I could do that. And what's great about it is I can suffer and it's just me suffering. Yeah. The problem becomes when you get to your 30s, when you get to your 40s, when you get married and you have kids, when you suffer, your family is going to suffer with you. And the challenge that I knew I would see is that if I don't suffer enough in my 20s and be able to build something that I can stand on for the future, then my family will suffer. Yep. And so I spent my 20s, bag of potatoes at the grocery store was $2. Bottle of ranch dressing was another $2. I can eat for a week. You know what I mean? Like I got a bag of potatoes, and I got ranch dressing, a little bit of butter on there. I will eat every day. I will feel full, right? And I'll go to work and I will pay off all my debts. I will start saving money. You just start making good decisions and building the lifestyle that you want to. Because if you do that in your 20s, your 30s are going to be awesome. Yeah. Your 40s are going to be awesome. What happens is if you don't do that in your 20s and you let this debt sit and you don't invest the dollars and you don't do some of those things, you'll have to catch up in your 30s, which means you are going to be in pain for those years. And I hate to say that. I wish it was just like, it'll work out for itself. Retirement doesn't work like that. You can't just accidentally fall into retirement unless you got some rich parents. If you do, that's dope, right? I'm for it. That's great. But if you don't, and you have to build it for yourself, you have to be disciplined today.
Yeah, I guess I look at it, most people are not going to do that. I
totally.
know two people who have done that, you and one of my good friends from college. Mm-hmm. And it was so funny. I remember he moved down here to come work with us. And this was years ago. He got a nice apartment, him and his wife. Yep. And I was super excited for him. I got a place in Waverly. That was back before it got crazy expensive. But I went over to his house one day. This was like 3 months after he had gotten the place and moved here.
Sure.
Walk in. No furniture.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Bachelor life. Let's go. Yep. Sure.
And I'm like, dude, you're married. Like your wife's, they had 3 bar stools. They had literally the living room was empty.
Sure.
Walk into the bedroom. There's a bed on the floor, no furniture, nothing, just a literal mattress on the floor. Yep. And I knew what this guy made. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm just paying stuff off. Yep. Paying stuff off. And, he's in his 30s now, and I literally, he did not get a TV in his house until probably 30, 31, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. No internet. Literally, didn't have Wi-Fi.
It's tough.
Wouldn't pay for it.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I remember we would call him after work some days, or we called him, he was going down to Greenville for an event, and we call him, and it was a Cricket Wireless. Was the tone. It was, the caller you've called doesn't have any more minutes, whatever. Literally didn't have minutes. And I was like, brother, it is 2021 here. How do you have a phone that has minutes? I didn't even know he still made that.
Yeah.
And he sacrificed like crazy. Yep. And here he is now at 35, maybe 34.
Yep.
His house is paid for. has a paid for house in Wisconsin.
Yes.
And he's probably closing in on $1 million saved at this
crazy.
point. And I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. If he didn't have $1 million, I'd be surprised at this point.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's incredible what people can do.
Yep.
When you have that discipline.
Yep. And what I would say the thing that I struggle with is like I don't like to make big purchases. And so like the back end of that is like I struggle to spend money, right? And so like that's me struggling with it, but like not everybody is the same. Some people spend money and it's easy for them to do that, right? Yeah. And I think we've seen both sides of this, especially when people walk in the office. A lot of people that have saved it their whole life and they don't know what to do with it now, right? Or they spent it all and they're like, what do I do now, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I mean, for Alex, if it were me, I would be kind of splitting it between paying the debt and investing. Because that's a lot of compounding interest time at 24 years old.
Agreed.
And the debt at the end of the day, 6.5% student loans on 50 grand. I bet you his payment's like $200 a month.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should drag that out because you'll never pay it off at $200 a month. But I think he'd feel a lot better with 10 grand in savings versus 800. And, the credit cards are paid off. He already says he has a small credit card from moving. And he'd probably feel better having, 10, 15 grand invested.
Yeah. And the other thing with this is the dollar that you save today is so much more valuable than the dollar in 30 years. So saving it today, even if it's a small amount, will have massive effects on the compounding interest side. So saving $1 today is way, way better than waiting any time.
I think out of everyone we looked at, Alex is probably in the best position, to be honest with you. Because he's so young with a decent salary that he can really grow.
That's right. All right, we're going to section 2. This is a little bit, there's 6 different points in here that we're going to kind of touch on, but ultimately the name of this segment is how to tell if you're doing financially well. So the big picture, the scorecard, the net worth that you have today is the basic picture. That's where we start when we talk about some of these things on, are you up? Are you down? Yeah. How far under are you? And how do you get out of that? And I think a lot of folks might look at this and be like, I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah. I don't know what my net worth is today.
Yeah. And, I think most people, like you're right, they don't even know, but there are some people who they get freaked out by it. They get upset. And I don't want to say it's a bad thing to have a negative net worth because it is. But at the end of the day, when you're young and you're getting that first house, guess what? You're going to be taking on a mortgage. It's going to happen. You're taking on those student loans. You're buying that car. Don't get overwhelmed by the things that you really need to do anyways.
Yeah, sure.
From your eventual goal, because that home is more than likely going to go up in value.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get it paid off one day. You're going to sell it, move to a bigger home.
Yeah.
You got to have a car.
Yep.
Don't have to have a brand new one, but you need a car. So at the end of the day, it's the age is really the biggest determination of, when it starts to matter.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we talk about here is the fact that when you're 30, you want to have maybe, if you can, your annual salary saved. Yeah. So when you get through your 20s, if you made 52 grand a year, if you had 52 grand a year saved, now most people don't.
Yeah.
By the way,
most people do not.
Most people don't. Most people have 5. 10, something like that. They match their 401k, their IRA, whatever it might be. Pick your account if you would. But that's one of those things where you're aiming to try and do that. If you miss the mark a little bit, I think you're okay. Yeah. I still think you're in a good place if you've got 10, 15, 20 grand saved.
When your 20s, you're the lowest earning point in your career.
Agreed.
You're just starting out. Your 30s is really, in my mind, I used to think 30 was an adult, and I don't feel like an adult at all at 31. But it's funny because, truly, I look at it like you're really just starting to get your footing at 30.
Yeah,
you're really starting to get comfortable. Life is starting. You're like, oh, this is fun now.
Yeah,
you've kind of battled through those early 20s where everybody's just kind of wandering around with no idea what to do, and 30s when you're really starting to figure it out.
Yeah, and ultimately, my advice is to try and figure out what this number is. You can use some of the apps or whatever, and then figure out where is my net worth and where do I want it to be. I think having a goal for this is good. Hey, I want to have, if I am 36 today, By the time I'm 51, I want to have $1 million saved, whatever it is. Find a realistic goal and then do the numbers. Let's backtrack. If I want to get to $1 million by 51 and I'm 36 today, I have 15 years. How much do I have to put away? And then how much do I need from market return to get to that spot? Yeah. And I think that matters when you start to put those goals on paper in front of you, because you'll be able to achieve them because you can see them. Once again, I come back to this idea.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have it written down somewhere, whether it's an app or your iPad, whatever. It has to be something you can see, or you won't do it.
Yep, exactly.
You won't do it.
Yeah, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the tactical level here. We've got cash flow health, our income, our savings rate, the budget reality, and what are those different things. So if you were to take a snapshot, and this is maybe you, and we've heard of all these different rules. I live by the 10-10-80 rule. Tithe 10%, save 10%, spend the rest. 80% goes somewhere else, right? But we've heard of all these different ones. We've got the 50-30-20, which is 50 needs, 30 wants, 20 savings. Give me what the Hunter Henry household
I'm the 10-10-80, to be honest
with you.
You're a
10-10-80 guy? Yeah.
I always have been. It's and it's kind of what I learned growing up. But
sure.
At the end of the day, like, my friend Travis and I were having this conversation, and he was talking about tithing. And we both agree it's super important.
Sure.
And he was asking me, he was like, Hunter, what do you think? And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I think you tithe 10%. It's just what I do. But it doesn't have to. Tithing could be to anything. It could be charity work. It could be whatever you want it to be. But he had mentioned, he's like, I think I don't want to do it right now, and I really just want to focus on my debt and getting that gone, so then I can do it more in the future and just tithe them more. And I was like, I don't necessarily see a problem with that.
Sure.
I think you have to make sure you're in the right position to do those things. I don't know. That's a tough one for me.
Yeah. We talk about this a lot on the radio show. I talk about it a lot with my own family. When you go to church on Sunday, there's normally a message at least once a year to talk about tithing, maybe twice a year. And for those who don't know, this is the idea of giving.
Yeah.
Right? To be able to benefit somebody with your dollars. And the best example I have for this, when I was 17 years old, I joined the military. My mom looked at me, she said, CJ, you're a rotten child. You need discipline in your life, and you need to figure out who you want to be. And I'm like, Mom, I want to pay for school. I want to find a way to get those dollars, and I want to try and get myself in a financially good situation. Yeah. So when I enlisted, there was a $20,000 bonus. Now, this is in the middle of the Iraq War in 2007. And so I enlisted, and I got $20,000 as a 17-year-old in high school. Right? I went to boot camp the summer of my junior to senior year, and I came back, and everyone that met me said, CJ, you are a different guy now. Something has changed inside of you. And one of the things that actually changed inside of me is, one, I learned about responsibility and respect, but I had some money. And so now when I wanted to go do stuff with my friends, or I wanted to be able to experience something together, I could be like, hey, friends, we're going to go to this theme park for the day, and it's like $50 a ticket. And I'd be like, I'll pay for everybody. 7 of us are going. It's going to cost $350. We're going to have a great memory and a great day. And one of the things I learned from that is I want to be able to give back to folks that don't have the same opportunity, because I want to experience life with them, and that's my way of loving and caring them.
And, maybe it's as a guy, I think, but really, like, as a man, the happiest things that we get, at least in my mind, are when I build something and other people get to enjoy it.
Yeah, sure.
So for me, it's the lake and taking everybody out in the boat and, paying for the boat gas, and everybody gets to go out and enjoy the day on the lake.
Yeah.
And, have a drink and do a little surfing. Like, that's, to me, that is, it's worth it. It's so important.
Yeah.
To be able to, have that, to be able to build something.
And I think, especially because we're both young, right? We're in our 30s, right? We're not 60. We're not 70. We don't know exactly what those things, but we do get to spend time with those folks and understand what they want. And what a lot of them say is they just want to give. Yeah. That's part of, when you get to that spot, you're going to want to give back to others, whether that's service, whether that's quality time, whether it's actual dollars, whatever it might be, you want to be in a position to give. Yeah. And so I think starting that habit sooner helps you when you get to that spot.
It definitely does. So, well, let's hop into the next one. We got the debt check here. Good debt versus dangerous debt.
Okay, what's Dave Ramsey say about debt?
All debt's bad.
All debt is bad. I heard him say recently that if you were to give him $1 billion at 0% that he had to pay back in 5 years, he wouldn't take it. Doesn't want the money. Now, I think that's silly, because I can take that and I can put it in a CD, a mutual fund,
Yeah.
anything that's not an annuity.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get whatever I'm going to get from the interest side, and I'll just give you back your $5 billion
Exactly.
$1 billion at the end of it. So I think there's a wise way to do it. But I think what Dave likes, and we're Dave Ramsey certified. We adopt the model. I'm clearly very, very conservative. I don't like debt. I'm not a big fan of debt in any capacity. But there are some forms of debt that are okay. And I think one of them, when I look at, is the car. So I painted this picture of me in my 20s. I drove a piece of crap. Acura Integra, 1990.
Oh, yeah.
It had the seat belts. That automatic, you close the door and they trap you in there and it moves out. And it was so cool for the time, whatever. But that car would break on me all the time.
Yeah.
I'd be fixing the battery. I'd be fixing the brakes.
Yeah.
It was a manual transmission.
So this is one that Dave talks about all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, go buy that $2,000. Okay, listen, I don't know where you buy a $2,000 car anymore.
Sure.
First of all, and if you find one, it's probably not drivable.
Yeah.
So my dad will talk about this all the time. But this idea that you get that good job, right? You have a single mom, and you just landed that perfect job. It's going to really help you get out of the situation that you're in. Let's say it's Sarah, that girl from earlier, and she's got the little Kia Soul, little toaster car with 200,000 miles on it. And every day it's just something else. It's the tires, it's the brakes, it's the transmissions going out. Bless you.
Thank you.
And it's all these things. And at what point do you sit down and say, okay, well, I have this extra money, maybe the $300 car payment to guarantee that I get to work every day without my car breaking down, and I get fired because my car breaks down and I can't get to the office, or I can't pick my kid up from school because the car broke down, or whatever it is.
Yep.
It's important to think about.
Yeah, and we're not even talking about efficiency too.
Yeah.
It might be cheaper for your weekly spend for our tactical day-to-day gas tank if we get a car that's more efficient on gas than the older cars were, right?
Call me crazy, but those new Teslas, all these electric cars, they're cheap.
Yeah.
Like in comparison to everything else out there.
Yeah.
And I think, there's a lot to be said depending on how much you drive, depending on, where you work. There's some people at our office here, they don't drive. They all ride scooters to work because they live right here by the office.
Yep.
That's great. But when you start living in the suburbs, you start building a family and these things, you need to think about it. I don't think it's a bad debt to have. And within reason.
That's right. And there's a level of reliability that you're just looking for in general. Because ultimately, to be consistent, right? My buddy, Dylan, Dylan.
Yeah.
He calls it things that take no talent, right? TNT. What are some things that take no talent? Well, showing up on time takes no talent. You show up, right? And you just set the alarm and you show up and you're on time, right? There's just certain tasks that exist in your life that take no talent. And ultimately, you want to build reliable functions where you can do things that take no talent because that makes you reliable. And now I know that Hunter will always be on time at 9 a.m. But if Hunter has a crappy car and he's constantly 20, 30 minutes late because the flat tire, because the battery changed, whatever, that creates an inconsistency in your life. Yep. And that makes it a challenge for you to be reliable. And people will notice those things, right?
I think what we're talking about here, like acceptable debt to me is debt that I can calculate as an ROI. It needs to have a return on the investment.
Sure.
So for me, my house, there's a return on the investment for that.
Sure.
Like there is. I have
parking the cash.
I have a place to go to sleep at night. I have a place to park my cars. I have a beautiful home, and it's going up in value. I see the ROI there. The car, for me personally, it has an ROI because I'm a car guy.
Yeah.
So I did spend a little bit more money on my car because I enjoy driving. It's one of my things that I love doing. Now, it fits in my budget. Not overspending on it. It fits within my parameters that I have set that I'm willing to spend on the car. And, if that means, for some people, they like vacations. They go on 4, 5, 6 vacations a year. Great. For me, I like the car. So I was willing to sacrifice a little bit on the vacation stuff so I don't go as often, spend more on that. I'm okay with it. I think there's ways to have acceptable debts as long as you can tell me or tell yourself, what that ROI is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you can make sacrifices here. You can sacrifice something for the other thing. You can also build your lifestyle around it. And you said it here, we got a lot of guys that work in the office here that live in downtown and they walk to work. And guess what? They don't need a car because they
don't need the $600 car payment.
That's right.
They can have the
no
$1,800 apartment.
insurance, all the other stuff they're sacrificing on. And that's a life decision. And sometimes that's the right move for you because you save money and you live a life that you enjoy.
Well, and it's the same thing like with the home. Like I could make an argument. One of my buddies in Florida, Zach, he took out an expensive mortgage at a very young age. What did he do? He went and took 3 of his best friends, moved them in there with him.
Yeah.
They weren't married. They weren't planning on getting married anytime soon. So the 4 of these guys lived together in this little townhouse in Florida. And I can't even imagine how much of the mortgage he's knocked off on that thing, having 3 other guys paying for it. He essentially was living rent-free.
Yeah, and they're living cheap.
Yeah.
Right, because it's good for them as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like there are things you can do.
Yeah.
There are acceptable debts. Now, but danger zones are those high-interest credit card debts. It's the payday loans, the car loans that exceed 10 to 15% of your take-home pay, things like that. Those, I would say, are unacceptable.
Yeah.
What we're looking here is that debt to income, that DTI rate, and that'll play a huge role when you're getting your first home.
Yeah.
Is making sure your DTI is manageable.
Yeah.
That's why they say, hey, don't go buy a car while you're trying to, get a new house. Don't go rack your credit card debt up because they want to see you under 28% for housing, typically.
Exactly. So there's good forms of debt. There's bad forms of debt. Make the decision, and ultimately, if it's high interest, you don't want it. Get rid of it as quick as you can. Okay, let's talk. I want to talk about emergency funds.
Yeah.
Because my view has changed on emergency funds for a while. I used to be a super cash heavy guy. And I say super cash heavy, I wanted like a year's worth. I was like,
that's excessive. That's excessive. And I know people like that.
Yeah, totally.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. And I've recently actually gone to the extreme where I'm more of a 3-month now guy. I only have about 3 months, so I can, if the Collins household is $8,000 a month spend, we're only going to have on hand about $18,000, $20,000, depending, it fluxes, it goes up and down depending on what happened or whatever's going on. But that's kind of the marker I have set. But where do you land on this one? What do you think?
3 to 6.
You're 3 to 6, yeah.
Yeah, 3 to 6. I mean, I don't see a problem with having less than that, to be honest with you.
Sure.
Depending on your situation.
Yeah.
I'm a single guy.
Hey.
I could cut 90% of my lifestyle and probably be just happy.
Yeah.
Just give me an internet connection and a laptop. And I can find something to do to occupy my time.
Sure.
But if you're married and you have kids and those things, you don't want to make them suffer.
Totally.
So, you have to be prepared to lose that job or lose that income or, the emergency room or, whatever it is. The roof goes out, the car needs tires. You need to be prepared for those things.
Yeah, and I view this, there's some things that are luxury and some things that are necessity, right? Yeah. The emergency fund has to exist to be able to fix things that are a necessity. If the air conditioning goes out in your house, right? That's not great. And I would view that as probably a requirement nowadays, especially in like a summer where you're living someplace hot or whatever. Like us. So like if you didn't have air conditioning, that would absolutely destroy your way of living and it would cause major impacts to that, right?
I can speak to that one personally because my AC went out in my first home and I just got the house.
Yeah.
So I had to spend all my money and thankfully it was like September. So in North Carolina, September is a very livable month without AC or heat. So literally I didn't get it fixed for like a month and a half because I was like, house is fine.
Exactly.
It wasn't a big deal. Just turned it off and let it rip.
Yeah.
And it, I was able to, rebuild my savings. But had that happened in June or July, we'd be having a different story. And I'd be probably taking a loan out to get that fixed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And part of this too is like, and you mentioned it, and that's where I want to go with it, is the fact that if you lose your job, losing your job is hard. Yeah. It's an emotional thing. What I have found is that I always am worried that I won't find a job quickly. Yeah. And I am so fast that 7 days later, I normally have it lined up. Yeah. And so that's why actually I cut my emergency fund, is because I was always worried, I want a year, right? But what I have found is that I'm able to kind of rebound really, really fast. Now, you might not be like that. And you might want to take more time, and especially because that's an emotional thing that happens where you want to take the time and you don't want to settle. right?
We
You don't
talked
wanna
about that
go-
last week.
Yeah, you don't want
You
to
don't want to just take the first offer.
Exactly.
Because there might be another one right around the corner. It's even better.
Yeah, you got it. And so this is part of the thing that you're trying to solve. When you're building your emergency fund, you're really building a blanket for things that you want to happen in your life in the right way. And sometimes those emergencies that pop up are requirements. You have to pay for it.
Yeah.
But sometimes this is a luxury item where if you have 6-9 months to be able to wait for something, that's not the end of the world. And sometimes it's good for your mental health.
Oh yeah,
right?
No, and I think there's so many for having that security. It's keeping those credit cards below 30%. It's making sure your health insurance is updated and you have the correct amounts. For me, by myself at 30, I'm not as worried about my health. I take care of myself, so I don't need to have the crazy expensive insurance plan because I don't really get sick all that often.
Exactly.
Just think about things.
Yep. The other thing on here that I thought was interesting, we haven't talked about this much, is credit score.
Yeah, it's a big one.
What do you think about how to build your credit? What does it look like? What's the best way to do it? Do you really need it? What's going on here?
I don't know why. I love focusing on that. So
Sure.
I focused really hard on getting my credit score up. So I was in like the 600s. I think I might have been even in the 5s when I was in college.
Yeah.
Because I had a medical debt that I didn't know about. And it ruined me. It was a derogatory mark. That's like the crimson sin of credit score.
Sure.
You can't miss a payment.
Yep.
So I had reached out to a credit attorney and they went in there and I paid them like $400. And a month later, that derogatory mark was gone. It's crazy how that can work. And people, you get these people that get dug into these holes where they've missed a couple payments, this and that. You can hire an attorney for these things, and it's not a guarantee when they can get them removed, but they're really good at it.
Yeah.
They typically could find a way to get a lot of that stuff taken off your credit report, which is huge. It helps you out a ton. So, today I'm in the 800s. I have multiple credit cards all through American Express.
Hey, let's go.
And shout out American Express. And I keep them all under 30%. Now I have a couple cards that don't have a limit, or they don't have a set limit per se. Those you can, kind of put whatever you want on them, and they're not going to ping on your score if that makes sense.
Sure.
But your regular revolving credit cards, if you have a $10,000 limit, you should not spend more than $3,000. You go over 30%, that's when the creditors start to get a little nervous.
Sure.
Like, we don't like this very much.
Yep.
So in my mind, as long as you keep it under 30 and you pay it in full each month, I don't mind them.
Yeah.
And they're a great tool for building credit.
Yep. That's the way I did it, by the way, too. So I always I had a debit card and a credit card. I put everything on the credit card.
Pay it off.
I'm actually a weekly guy, so I pay off the credit card every week.
Yeah, I can't handle seeing it. Like I don't like it. Like I'll get to, you get a thing where it says, your payment for the month is, $1,300, but overall you're $2,400. Yeah, I'm paying the whole $2,400.
Yeah, we'll just get rid of it.
The whole thing's going away.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you get all the points and the benefits on the credit cards, and so that's a great way. And it builds your credit score. And ultimately, I would say you may get to a spot one day in life where credit score doesn't really matter. And I think after you buy a home and after you get through your mortgage and you own your home, the credit score stuff is like not really valuable in some ways, right? Unless you were going to get a loan for something.
Exactly. Like business owners, things like that.
Yeah.
It's very important. The entrepreneurs, being able to put yourself in a situation to move on something when you want to do it.
Yep.
That's for us, it's huge. Being able to just, go over to the bank and say, hey, this is what we're proposing, this is what we want to do.
Exactly.
And they say, oh, well, you've been a great customer, no issues.
Yeah, but I don't think it's something where you should let it hold you down, because it's not something that's going to ruin your entire life.
It won't.
It will make it more challenging. It'll make some things more expensive. But ultimately, if you start doing the right things that we've been talking about here in this show and having some of those areas just compound, whether it's investments, whether it's making sure you're getting these payments down, credit card, education, health, whatever it might be, you're going to find yourself with a good credit score. And so
you
if
will.
You do the right
and
things.
eventually, too, at some point, when you're buying the home, once you go through the miserable process of getting a mortgage, because it's horrible. I mean, it's truly one of the worst experiences that I've ever had was getting my first mortgage.
Yep.
I felt like I was signing a deal with the devil. But once you get that and you pay on it and you don't miss your payments and you take care of everything, getting your next one's not as bad.
Absolutely.
The one after that's not as bad either.
Hey. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here.
Yeah.
We've gone a little bit
we
over.
Went a few over.
We went a few over. So we're going to go to our Q&A segment here. It's just our last page on the notes. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you. Go ahead, like, comment, subscribe. Yeah. If you have a question for us that you want answered, put it down in the comments. We will get your question answered. Hunter, coming to you first with the top one.
Do it.
At what point do you think I should decide to cut my losses with an investment? I always struggle to know when I need to accept the loss and move on.
Great question. How old are you?
I don't know. Well, let's say we're 40.
40.
40.
Okay, so let's say we got another, 25 years to work?
Yeah.
Let's say 25, we'll retire at 65?
Sure.
It depends. Is it something that, for me, I invest in Rivian.
Ooh.
I like the company.
Sure.
I really like them. I think they're like a future Tesla. Not investment advice. I like them. I've owned one. I've researched the company. But I know that they've been a very volatile stock. They IPO'd at like $110. It's like $12 now for a share of it. So they have tanked. I would not stake my retirement on Rivian.
Mm-hmm.
Do I buy it for fun? Absolutely.
Sure.
Not necessarily worried about what it does. Now, if it's like my retirement account and I was, invested in it, I'd be a lot more cautious, and things like that. I would, for me at 20 or, 30, 20, 30, 40% loss doesn't scare me. I wouldn't like it, but it doesn't scare me. For me, it just says, okay, time to buy more.
Yeah.
I think it really just depends on that time horizon. When are you planning to retire? Because a 20% loss at 30 years old and a 20% loss at 64 years old, two totally different types of losses.
Yeah, and if I broke that up into two different statements, it would be 1, time horizon, and 2, risk assessment.
Yep.
So how much risk are we going to take with the amount of time we have left for this conversation? And ultimately, what we do see from a lot of folks is that people love to be in fear and sell a stock, sell their position in an investment, a real estate, whatever it might be.
Yep.
And normally, selling when something is low is a bad idea.
Yeah, you're supposed to buy low and sell high.
Hey, you got
People
it.
just don't do that.
That's right.
The problem.
Yep. So when you're
Fear
up,
takes over.
you just got to take your wins. And it's kind of like being at a casino table and winning $100 and being able to walk away with your $100 at that point. Because what do most people do, Hunter?
What I did. Exactly what I did, which was stay.
That's right. You stack that thing on there, you say, I'm doubling it up, and you lose the whole thing.
I lost a lot that night.
But if you took $50 off of that,
and
you said, hey, I'm going to put this in my pocket. This is my winnings right here. And then one day, it shows back up, and Tesla's at half price. It's down. It's low. Rivian is down there. Now I got my $50 in my pocket that I had saved from when I was up. And I'm going to buy that for the day that it comes back. And that's the way you need to look at investments. It's not an emotional decision. It is an emotional decision.
Yeah.
I love this statement. Ben Shapiro said this. He said, facts don't care about your feelings.
No, they don't.
And I think the opposite is even more true. Feelings do not care about your facts.
Oof. That's good. I like that.
So people do what they think is best because of the way they feel, even though it may be wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I look at it from that perspective of at my age, I don't even need to look at it.
Yeah.
It's on autopilot.
Yeah.
It just keeps buying every week. I have it set to buy like a couple dollars a day in some things that I'm passionate about, but for the most part, don't look at it.
Yep.
You're 25 years old. Let it rip. Let it roll.
And that's right. When you have a 20-year time horizon, don't look at it. We'll see you in 10 years. Have a great day.
You know what it's going to do.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying leave it invested in dumb stuff for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like make sure it's invested properly.
Yeah. Core 100. Let's go.
I'm not not worried about the downturn markets when I'm my age. Now, when I'm getting to my, late 40s, 50s, I'm looking at it more.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more conscious of it. I might be making some lifestyle changes or some investment changes, but I'm not changing the core of what I've been trying to do this entire time. And that's, not be an emotional investor.
That's right. That's right. Okay, Hunter, give me the next one.
So we've got here, how do I know if my savings rate is actually healthy? I put 10% into retirement, have a small emergency fund, but I feel stressed every month.
Oh my goodness. Isn't it amazing that comparison ruins all effort, right? When you start comparing if Hunter and I put our bank accounts next to each other and Hunter had $100,000 more than me in his savings account. He's saved $100,000 more. He's 5 years younger than me, right? And the feeling that I get when I say, oh, I'm behind, man. My 10%, my hard work going towards this makes me behind. Isn't that a silly feeling? You have to be able to let go of the idea that other people have different scenarios, different things going on. You can't compare yourself to others. What you can do is know what your goal is. Hey, when I get to this spot, when I get to 65, I want to have $1 million saved so that I can do X, Y, and Z, right? But starting to look around and you look at other people's cars or houses or jobs or wives or kids or sporting activities or toys, whatever it is, will just ruin all of the hard work you have.
Yeah, it ruins joy.
It takes joy away.
Yeah, and thief of joy.
Exactly. And so don't compare yourself in this way to folks. Saving 10% of $100,000 or $30,000 is the right answer.
It's a lot of money.
It's just doing it consistently. Because I would tell you the difference is most people aren't saving the 10%. Everyone that walks into our office, I say everyone, a lot of folks walk in trying to find a solution with the math that doesn't math. They do not have enough money to retire. And I hate saying that to them. But it's sometimes true.
The worst feeling.
It is sometimes true, though, and I hate it. But if you make the right decision, you save 10%, the rest of your life, you're going to be successful. So don't let any of the white noise around that ruin it for you.
It's that's a tough one. I mean, comparison is the thief of joy, and it truly is when you're talking about things like your retirement. It's social media, like we talked about earlier. Huge influence.
It is.
That.
Yep.
Let's hit me with the next one.
Okay, what you got? All right, let's see. I have a 660 credit score and some high interest credit card debt. How much difference does improving my credit actually make? And what's the fastest way to do that while paying down debt?
I wouldn't even be focused on my credit score.
It's just a number.
It's a number. At that point, that's not the. We're focusing on the elephant in the room. The elephant is that high interest credit card rate.
Yeah.
It's that debt.
In some ways, it's a symptom.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. It's yes, if you had a better credit score, could you maybe get a lower credit card rate? Totally could.
Yep.
By how much? I don't know. 5%, 6, 10, I don't know. But paying that high credit off first is huge. And guess what? When you do that, your credit score is going to go up. Get it below 30%. Your credit will spike. It'll shoot up. It's that's the easiest way to get that credit score up. But that's not the elephant in the room there. It's the actual debt itself is the problem.
Yeah, I mean, 680 is not bad, by the way.
Like, no, it's not. Like this you're 20 points away from a 700, which 700 is considered a great score.
Exactly. And so, once again, I think doing the right things, going back to the fundamentals, making sure you're trying to pay down your debt will get you in a good place with this. Using credit cards in the way that we talked about will get you in a good place with
and all the banks, all the creditors, all they want to see is you can manage the risk. You can manage that debt.
Totally.
So they don't care that you have 45 different accounts. And, people are like, oh my gosh, 45 accounts. Well, we talked about a few of these people, they have student loans. Those student loans are grouped. So you could have a $2,000 loan here and a $3,000 and a $7,000 and this and that. Those are all different accounts. So when you go to pay your student loan payment, like on Nelnet or whatever, it could be $300. That's your payment. But what you don't see is if you go actually look at each group, well, it's a $9 payment here and a $30 payment here and this and that. And the banks actually see, they're like, oh, well, this guy's managing 25 accounts. This is really good. And they reward you with better rates, higher limits, things like that. So it's not necessarily the credit is the end all be all to if you can retire or not, but it does help you get better rates, save a little bit of money in certain cases, things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Good advice. Here we go. All right, last one. We didn't talk about this in great depth, but I do want to dive into a little bit. So the question is, I want to try the 30-day no-spend challenge, but I'm worried I'll fail because of my social life and kids. What are realistic variations and that still deliver big results? So we didn't invest a ton of time in this today.
Yeah, no, we didn't at all.
But the 30-day no-spend challenge is basically living 30 days as minimalistically as possible.
That does not mean don't pay the car payment, don't pay the insurance, don't pay the house.
That's right. But it does mean not going out to dinner, not going to the movies, not buying more subscriptions, not doing the things that we normally do.
Get the coffee.
No Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
So just cutting out those things and then seeing how it impacts your daily life.
And there's other variations of that too.
Yeah.
For some people, maybe not 30-day no spend. What if it's 30-day invest? And you find a way that you can invest each day over 30 days, whether it's $1 a day or $5 a day.
Yeah, just finding those extra dollars. Yeah,
finding those extra dollars, find them somewhere. Maybe that's you don't buy the Starbucks this morning, and you take that $6 and you throw it into Robinhood or wherever, and you go put it in an account.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and ultimately the question here is about that no spend challenge, but they're worried they'll fail because of social life and kids. And this is very much a challenge because we want to have a social life, right? We want to go. If you're like Hunter's taking his 2 kids and we're going to Carowinds for the day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey buddy, I got to go to Carowinds. I'm coming to Carowinds with you.
Yeah.
We're coming with you. And so there's a level of like, I'm going to have to say no to things like that when I'm trying to do the 30-day no spend challenge. And that's tough.
I think it's easier when you're on your own if you're disciplined. It's harder when you have other people relying on you and you have to tell them no.
Yeah.
But doing the hard things so you can better yourself in the future, and not just yourself, but potentially your whole family.
Yeah.
It's way more important.
It is. And I know you guys, because Mark talks about this, but ultimately you guys had different meals that you had to prepare as kids during the week. And so Hunter might be Monday night and he's got to figure out the meal for everybody, right?
Got a budget and everything.
And you could do this with your family and say, hey guys, I want to try for 30 days the no spend challenge. We're going to see how much money we can save, and we can talk about where that money goes.
Yep.
It gets invested into a Disney trip, whatever it might be. And so it can be a family incentive around something like this. It doesn't just have to be, hey, we're going to grind it out because we like pain. It can be, hey, we're working towards a goal as a family in order to be able to achieve that goal. And I think those are wonderful pieces.
Yeah, great questions today.
It is. It was a great show today. I hope you learned something. I'm excited for another episode next week. We always are live Wednesdays.
Wednesdays at 10.
At 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have questions, comments, concerns, let us know below in the chat. If you hate us, we want to know in the chat. Be like, those guys are dumb. I think you should do this instead. Tell us what you think down there. But we will be back next week, Wednesday, to talk about it all again. Thanks for joining us on the Wealth Help Desk, and we'll see you next week. For too long.